Hi everyone, my name is Mike Foley, Staff Technical Marketing Architect at VMware in the vSphere Tech Marketing team. And with me is my partner in crime, Bob Plankers. Bob, introduce yourself.
Yeah, what is it I do around here, huh? Well, I do what you used to do, compliance and security in technical marketing. Talk about trying to get people to be secure, to be compliant, and what's the best way to do that, how to use your head when you're doing that. The security is always a trade-off. What are those trade-offs? Lots of stuff to talk about in security.
Cool. And I hear you are the new guy, or I should know this. You are the new guy to talk about security, but what specific aspect of security around vSphere, especially around vSphere 7, do we want to talk about today?
Well, there's a lot of stuff in vSphere 7. vSphere 7 added and changed a lot of things. We're always improving our products, looking at how people are using them, trying to make them easier to use. And a different episode of this, we talked about native key provider, where we can turn on virtual TPMs. And virtual TPMs are like hardware TPMs, except, well, virtual, like we are a virtualization company. And one of the things that virtual TPMs power is some of the Microsoft security technologies like Device Guard and Credential Guard. We have a technology called Virtualization Based Security. You enable VBS and you can enable vTPM and things like that. So I guess I'd like to talk about VBS a little bit. And you might say, Bob, that's not a vSphere 7 feature. And you're right. That's been around for a while. But it's really important. It's become really important to a lot of groups because of compliance activities, because of security. There's a lot of compliance stuff out there. The DISA-STIG, for example, for Windows now mandates the use of these technologies. And so there's a lot of questions about it. And so what often happens is vSphere features are added, but it takes a little while before it takes a refresh cycle or really some external stimulus, some external thing.
Oh, I know all about that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you get it. But as people ask about it, it's a hot topic, and so so what do we want to talk about with VBS?
We had talked in the previous video about native key provider and being able to enable vTPM, and I know there's lots of confusion with customers around VBS and vTPM, and the fact that, and you can read this in the Microsoft documentation, you do not need a TPM to enable VBS.
You don't.
Within the Microsoft OS.
Some of the compliance checklists, some of the regulations do specify that you have to have a TPM.
Right.
But that's a different thing. That is an absolute different thing.
That's a compliance requirement, not a technical requirement, right? So I'm assuming this is with native key provider. Now, any customer will be able to enable a vTPM and meet their compliance objectives.
Yep, you can turn on the virtual TPM, the vTPM, and then from there, things like BitLocker, if BitLocker requires that. Windows, well, I should just start with, I believe Windows 2022, the next large iteration of Windows here, is actually going to require TPM support. And so it's going to be very important there. They want to store keys for BitLocker. They want to store secrets that might part of Device Guard and Credential Guard. They want to store them securely, and the vTPM enables that. And when you turn on the VBS, again, you turn on VBS, Virtualization Based Security, separately. And it's probably a good idea if you're thinking about doing that to turn it on when you're doing the install of your template VMs and things like that, so that you get all the right hardware. There's IOMMUs, there's all kinds of stuff that gets installed there. And then and you can turn on a vTPM at that same time. You can enable that if you've got the key providers set up to do that. And then from there, it's just something inside the guest OS. You can just follow the, well, as you've pointed out, it's just Microsoft's instructions on how to turn it on. It acts just like physical hardware. And what it does when you turn it on, when you turn on VBS and then enable it inside of Windows, it's either a group policy or a registry setting, and you turn it on, You don't have to install Hyper-V separately. There's a lot of instructions out there that say that you need to install Hyper-V. Those are really old. I would find new instructions if you see that. But the Microsoft documentation just has you turn it on in the group policy, and what it does is it adds a layer of Hyper-V. And so yes, you're running Hyper-V virtualization inside of VMware virtualization. But from there, it can manage the security. It runs the Windows guest as on top of that layer, and then that provides some extra insulation and isolation for secrets and things like that. So
right, all the credentials are running in essentially another isolated memory space using virtualization technology to isolate all of that.
Yep, there's a separate security process and secure enclave. We hear a lot about secure enclaves, whether it's iPhones or whatever. We hear about them from iPhones because law enforcement complaining that they can't get to secrets. Well, TPMs and all of these things, these secure enclaves on computers are the same way. We don't want the attackers to be able to get to the secrets, and so we create these secure enclaves that we can store them.
So while you could technically run BitLocker within the VM, it would make more sense to use VM encryption because of the efficiencies, certainly from a manageability standpoint, right?
Yep, absolutely. For BitLocker, there are security, as we've said in some of these other videos, security is always a trade-off. It's a tool in your toolbox, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. I've joked in the past about, just because you have a screwdriver doesn't mean it's the right thing to work on your electrical outlet with, so BitLocker might fit into your overall security strategy. Or, yeah, like you're pointing out, it might be better to use VM encryption because from a process perspective, VM encryption doesn't care what the guest OS is. It's invisible. That encryption is invisible to everything. And so, BitLocker and Device Guard, Credential Guard, VBS are very Windows-specific technologies. And so you need Windows processes, you need specific processes depending on the versions of the OS and things like that. And so, any security solution really needs to keep in mind the people side of things as well. How much work is it, the total return on investment. And so, it's one thing that to have a compliance framework, regulatory guidelines tell you you need to do this stuff, you need to check a box and that sort of thing. But, can you do that? Can you protect yourselves? All compliance frameworks have the concept of compensating controls as well. And so the idea that you can meet the goal of a framework or meet the goal of something in that framework in multiple ways. Maybe it says BitLocker, but the goal is probably encryption on disk, right? And so if you can meet that, you can do that in using VM encryption. Sometimes you can do it with vSAN encryption. There's lots of different ways, and that's actually one of the coolest things about vSphere.
Cool. Okay, so to wrap up, give us the quick one or two line wrap up and.
Sure. So VBS, Virtualization Based Security, a feature in vSphere, enables you to run Microsoft Device Guard and Credential Guard and be further protected inside your workload itself.
And with version 7 and the native key provider, you can enable
easier to turn it on.
Yeah. You can enable vTPM on top of that and put to rest all of those concerns about why do I need a KMS just to turn on vTPM.
Yep, vTPM across the board, no problems anymore.
Awesome. All right, Bob. Well, thanks for this update, and we really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have some more stuff to talk about.
Heck yeah. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you.